This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Find out more later in the video. The Western world is concerned with the objective. This is because the Western cultural tradition has been inherited from Plato's forms, and the Enlightenment philosophers with their focus on science and mathematics. The Western universe is a mechanistic one, and runs on universal principles in the sciences, ethics, and aesthetics alike. However, the Japanese world is different. This is because Japanese cultural tradition is based on transience. If you've seen my video on transience, you'll remember that the world is in constant flux. Humans are born and then die, stars are created, then explode, and the universe came into existence and will end. There are no forms or abstractions behind the transience of the universe. Rather, the transience is all there is. The enlightened man realizes that the soul does not live on after death. Rather, both the human and their soul dies at the same time. This emphasis on the transience of all things also trickles down into Japanese aesthetics, where the world is not conceived in terms of disinterested and intellectual rationalization, but rather in terms of experience. There's a crisscross of threads that intertwine humans in the natural world, humans with other humans, and the complex of relationships in between. The idea at the heart of this aesthetic is Wabi-Sabi. Like all concepts, Wabi-Sabi has evolved over time. It first came into use in the 15th century as a reaction to the ornate aesthetic of the shoguns. However, Wabi-Sabi actually has more in common with the original conception of the aesthetic, which comes from the Greek word for experience. Wabi-Sabi was thus a return to the spiritual roots of the Japanese aesthetic, and called for a return to connectedness with nature. Wabi is the transience of the world. A flower in full bloom is beautiful, but to focus on this is to neglect that the full bloom is one moment in the transience. The flower will flourish and wither, and the tree that supports it will reach towards the sun and then fall back into the earth. To focus only on the flower is to deny the transient nature of the world. This explains the Japanese fascination with the cherry blossom. It's not that the flowers of the cherry blossom aren't beautiful, but rather they're made more beautiful due to the short lifetime of the flowers before they wither away. Sabi is the rusted and the broken. Tree branches that twist around each other, moss that finds a home in cracked brick, and rust that discolors old roofs all bear the marks of Sabi. These objects all bear the experience that comes with age. Like the wrinkles on the face bear a lifetime filled with different emotions. Sabi also factors into kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with a golden glaze. If the pottery was to be thrown away, this also denies the reality of the world. All things become rusted and broken, and we should embrace this. If you've seen my video on transience, you'll be familiar with the Buddhist 3 marks of existence: transience, suffering, and non-self. The connection between these marks and Wabi-Sabi has a rich history. The basic idea is that we should accept the transience of the world and shed the attachments that bind us. Through this, we can alleviate the suffering in our existence and become enlightened. Wabi-Sabi, then, is the wisdom of the natural world in all its transience. I think most of us feel some tension between the mathematical laws of the universe and the chaotic and disorganized world that appears to our senses. The idea of Wabi-Sabi can alleviate this tension with the realization that the natural world is not static, but suffused with transience. We've discussed the theory behind Wabi-Sabi, so let's have a look at how it plays out in practice. And there's nowhere better to see Wabi-Sabi in action than in the tea ceremony. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes and members across 150 countries, who come together to find inspiration and take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare wants to make the creative life possible for everyone around the world, and you'll find a massive range of classes that are suited to the creative project that you have in mind. If you've been inspired by the nature artwork in this video, perhaps you'll enjoy this class on botanical illustration. I've found it to be immensely rewarding, and it's definitely made me more attentive to the natural world. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Start your creative life today. Thank you for listening, and now back to the video. Perhaps the best illustration can be found in the Book of Tea by Kakuzo Okakura. Although the tea ceremony had already slid away from the center of the culture at the time the book was written, it can still illuminate the importance of Wabi-Sabi in Japan. Okakura writes that the philosophy of tea is not mere aestheticism in the ordinary acceptance of the term, for it expresses conjointly with ethics and religion our whole point of view about man and nature. The ordinary acceptance of aesthetics is usually about the objective and perfect, but this isn't what Okakura means here. Rather, because transience and imperfection are so interwoven across Japanese culture, aesthetics is much broader and crisscrosses between ethics, religion, and other such categories. It is essentially a worship of the imperfect, as it is a tender attempt to accomplish something possible in this impossible thing we know as life. In the tea ceremony, the tea master Sen no Rikyu writes that utensils which are less than adequate are used over adequate ones. Cups and bowls which are chipped, cracked, and broken are more in line with the Wabi-Sabi aesthetic, and to misunderstand this is also to misunderstand Wabi-Sabi. The tea room is a bamboo and straw hut, rather than an ornate building. This stands in contrast to traditional Japanese architecture. The ancient buildings are massive, decorated, and complex, and have stood for centuries on end. No doubt these ancient monuments are beautiful, but it's clear that this architectural style contradicts the principles of Wabi-Sabi. The tea rooms are inspired by Zen Buddhist monasteries, with a focus on the simple. There are no ornaments to fill the space. Rather, the emptiness of the room allows for the subtleties of the light and shadow. The tea drinkers wear unobtrusive and muted colors, and the tea masters move with slow and steady movements. All in all, the tea ceremony is an existential affair. The subtle beauty of the utensils and older materials connects us with the world in a way that our modern technology can't. The tea ceremony is designed to be sensitive to the transience of things, and to make us realize our connections with the natural world. The tea ceremony is not the only cultural phenomenon which embodies Wabi-Sabi. Its influence can also be seen in the cultivation of bonsai trees, where the rough texture and twisted hollow trunks of the trees all serve as reminders of the transience of time. Much as with the cherry blossoms, bonsai trees are often shown when their leaves have fallen away, as the bare branches are more in line with the Wabi-Sabi aesthetic. Zen gardens also embody Wabi-Sabi, with their minimalist arrangement of rocks, moss, and plants. And haikus also take on this minimal aesthetic, with their focus on the subtle beauty in subjective experience. There's much to be learned from Wabi-Sabi and the tea ceremony. In our lives, there are 1,000,001 distractions away from the world. Social media has us stuck on our phones, shut away inside our digital echo chambers. Work fills our schedules with deadlines and meetings, and we rarely have the chance to appreciate the world that exists outside the confines of our offices. Consumer culture has us after all the latest trends, which are ephemeral and disappear once attained. Perhaps we should learn not to impose our human-made categories onto the universe, and instead live more in accordance with the natural world, and enact Wabi-Sabi in our own lives. We can even create our own kinds of ceremonies to celebrate this. Hopefully, if we keep Wabi-Sabi in mind, we can learn to find beauty even in the overlooked aspects of existence, the transient, the rusted, and the broken. As Okakura writes, "The afternoon glow is brightening the bamboos, the fountains are bubbling with delight, the soughing of the pines is heard in our kettle. Let us dream of evanescence and linger in the beautiful foolishness of things." Thank you very much for watching, peace and love, and I'll see you in the next video.